Hello and welcome now to this video. So I kind of have it in my mind at the moment to talk about this because it literally just happened. Uh I got okay, so on my profile, on my Hinge profile, yes, I'm on Hinge. I don't even know why I'm on there. I'm just really on there just to meet new people, just to have new interactions. Something interesting might come of it, and something interesting did come of it. I have this video that I'm making because of it. But I have a Hinge profile, and on my profile, one of the things that I mention is that people don't understand what true authenticity really means, right? And so this dude messages me asking me, what do I think true authenticity means? Like, what's my perspective on that? And what I told him is that true authenticity comes from understanding oneself, right? But it's not understanding oneself in the superficial of, understanding that you are a short-tempered person, for example. It's understanding your true essence, right? You study your thoughts, you study your behaviors every day, and you learn a little bit more about yourself as time goes on, right? And one of the questions to ask yourself is, are you a sensor type of person? Are you somebody whose emotions may elude them until you're in isolation and then your emotions are more understood? And then his response to this was, well, by that logic, it's based on something that is movable, that is ever changing, because thoughts and behaviors change over time. And you can't base your authenticity based on that because it's an always changing thing. And then he unmatched me and I guess blocked me. Don't know what that's all about. But I wanted to make a video because it's interesting. This kind of sparked an interesting thing in my brain. Because the thing is that he's not entirely wrong, right? Thoughts and actions do change over time. But what he doesn't realize, what he failed to understand, is that the true essence of a person is never changing, right? And to understand this, you have to also understand perspective, right? Your thoughts and actions do change over time. At least they should change over time, right? But in the moment, in that present moment, when you had those thoughts and you took those actions, it was authentic. It was real to how you felt in that moment. So just because these things can change over time doesn't necessarily mean they weren't authentic and they weren't in your true authenticity. But even that in and of itself is a more superficial understanding of authenticity, which is what he wasn't understanding from what I said. I was talking about the true essence. In other words, what makes you, you, right? A Windows computer will always be a Windows computer, no matter what you download onto it. You can figure out a way to run Safari on a Windows computer, and you can find a way to have, what are all those Apple exclusive programs called? I don't remember a lot of them. You can run a Windows computer as if it were an Apple computer through coding and, whatever, jailbreaking. I don't know how the fuck all of that works. I'm not too knowledgeable on that. But the point is, you can run a Windows computer as if though it were an Apple computer. But at the end of the day, it's not an Apple computer. It is still a Windows computer. So that's what I was referring to. Your operating system, who you are, your true essence. When you understand that about yourself, then you begin to live more authentically, right? And this kind of ties into a thought that I had last night about, this perspective that I've kind of been awakening to recently of authenticity, right? Basically, last night I was giving it thought, and I've made decisions in my life that I regret. I think we all can, that's something that all human beings, we all kind of have in common, right? One of the many things. We have things in our life that we do regret, that we feel like we could have handled things differently, right? And what comes to mind in my experience is the past year, right? I lost a best friend. She didn't die. That made it sound like she died. I simply just severed the connection with two best friends, actually. Neither one of them died. I just severed, like I said, I severed the connections. And I regret the way I handled things, right? I do regret the way that I handled those situations. I could have handled them a little bit better, especially with one of them. But I made the decision that I made. I did what I did. I can't change that fact. And the fact of the matter is, in the moment that I made the decision to sever the friendships, the way that I did it, it did come from an authentic place. It didn't come from a place of like, you know, I'm upset and emotional or whatever. It came from a place of, even though they would probably disagree with that, or at least one of them would disagree with that, but I knew in my heart how I felt, right? And even if it was a more emotional leaning thing, it did come from an authentic perspective, right? I truly did feel that way. And it's important to stand firm in that authenticity for me because it was very real for me. The regret comes in the way I handled it, but it doesn't come in the form of, do I regret making that decision? I don't regret the decisions. I do firmly believe then and still firmly believe that it was for the better. I think I needed to let those friendships go in order to learn the lessons that I've learned from them. And so one of the interesting things about all of this is that it's widely talked about or widely understood, I guess, that hindsight is 2020, right? A lot of people will say this, a lot of people talk about this. Oh, hindsight is 2020. But I feel like we need to start challenging that notion from a more philosophical point of view, because hindsight truly is only limited to the perspective of the past, right? That's why it's, people say hindsight 2020, because when you can look back on a situation with eyes that you currently have, you feel like you have this bigger perspective of things, this bigger picture perspective of the things that happen, because you will gain more understanding as time goes on, as you understand why you made the decision and you sit with your emotions, you sit with the thoughts. And it's true, it is a bigger perspective, a bigger picture perspective. But the thing about hindsight being 2020 is that it is limited. It's a limited point of view. And the reason for that is because you don't know what the future will hold, right? You're limited to the perspective that you have of the past using the present form of yourself. And the present form of yourself exists in this moment, but it doesn't exist in the form that it will exist in the future. And so I call to question, or I call to think about the future you, let's say 5 years from now. That version of you is going to look back on you presently and think the same exact thing that you in this moment is thinking about the you in the past, right? Hindsight is 2020. So then the question becomes, who's right? Was it the version of you in the past that made the choice? Is it the present you looking back on that? Or is it the future you looking back on the present, looking back on the past? Who's right in this scenario? I feel like a lot of people will kind of fall onto this logical perspective on this and think, well, the future you is the correct one because the future you has the perspective of both the past and the present you. But then when you think about it more philosophically, that kind of is an open-ended perspective, because yes, the future you has the perspective of the present you and the past you, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's the right perspective, right? Because taking his logic, thoughts can change. So you may feel one way in the past, and then that changes in the present moment, and you feel differently. And then the future you might feel the same way that the past you felt like, as opposed to who the present you feels like. And then in that future moment, you'll be thinking, wow, hindsight 2020, I was right the first time when I thought I was right the present time. So then who's right? You see what I mean? This is kind of the conundrum. You don't know who's right, right? There's no real way to point to a certain version of yourself that is, okay, that's the correct version of me. So what I argue is all of them are right. Why are all of them right? Because all of them are real. You in the past felt strongly and firmly about the decisions and actions that you took. And present you feels firmly in the perspective it has versus that past version of you. And the future you will do the same against this present iteration of yourself. So all three of them are true because they're true to you. And this is what true authenticity is for me. It's living day by day, understanding yourself through your true essence, through your operating system, how you function as an essence, as a being. Understanding that and just living it, right? Not thinking about hindsight, not thinking about, well, who was I in the past, unless you're trying to draw wisdom from that. But don't think about it. Just stand firm in who you were. Stand in it. Own it, right? I made the decision to sever those friendships, and I stand firm in that decision. Do I regret the way I handled it? Absolutely. But the wisdom that I was able to draw from it is limitless, right? You gotta shift the perspective from one of loss to one of gain, because life is as much loss as it is gain. You will lose things, but you can gain wisdom. You will lose friendships, but you can gain wisdom from those friendships that you lost. I learned a lot of things from both of them. They've changed me in ways that are insurmountable at this point for me. But I knew I had to let them go, because in order for me to become more authentic to myself, I had to, right? And that is true authenticity. Let me know what you guys think. I think this was a very interesting thing to kind of think about, and it was very impromptu. The messages literally just happened a little while ago. And yeah, anyway, let me know what you guys think about this. And as always, up, down, left, right, pink and blue, Dance's Revolution, wherever that subscribe button is for you. Give the video a like, please. That'd be really awesome of you. And yeah, I'll catch y'all in the next video. Bye.